If you're listening to this, keep the file open and don't skip ahead. I'm not saying that like it's some dramatic warning. I'm saying it because the order matters, and because the first time I heard it, I tried to jump to the end the way people do when they're uncomfortable, and the sound came through anyway, as if it could hear me moving the timeline. I work with damaged audio for a living. Restoration, cleanup, cataloging, not the glamorous kind. The kind where you spend hours teasing a voice out of tape hiss so a family can hear a dead man say one clear sentence. The kind where you learn that most static isn't empty at all. It's just information your brain doesn't want. On the evening this started, the rain had been on the windows since lunch. Not heavy and theatrical, but relentless. The sort that makes the world feel smaller and softer and more sealed. My flat smelled faintly of wet wool because my coat wouldn't dry, and every surface felt cold to the touch. I'd been sent a small batch of files by a local archive down the coast, a council project that was digitizing old recordings from a closed communications relay station. They weren't even sure what half of them were. Probably maintenance logs, the email said. Could be nothing. The folder names were dull enough. Wind Test 87, Coastal Feed, Line Check. One file stood out because it had been renamed in a different hand, not the original system label. Station Road, Do Not Play in Car. It should have been funny. It wasn't. Not once I noticed the timestamp embedded in the metadata. Arrow 333, repeated 3 times like it had been copied over itself. The file opened with rain, but it wasn't the rain outside my window. It was sharper, a metallic patter, as if water was striking a roof made of corrugated sheet. Under it ran a low hum like overhead lines in wind, the steady vibration you feel more than you hear, and then, just beneath all of it, a wet clicking. Not a drip, not a tap. A click with weight behind it, irregular, like a tongue against teeth, like something testing a rhythm. I turned the volume down without thinking, the way you do when you realize you're alone. After 30 seconds, a voice appeared, close to the microphone, male, trying not to sound tired. If anyone's pulling this later, he said, don't play this in a vehicle. The signal seems to travel. He stopped, and in the gap, the wet clicking came nearer, clearer, as if it had leaned into the same space the man had just used. He swallowed. I could hear it. This is Station Road Check. I'm parked by the old gate. It wasn't here last month. There was a sound of him shifting, fabric against vinyl, and then a soft chime you'd get from a cheap dash cam when it starts recording. Another voice, faint, probably a radio squelch, and then words that didn't belong to any radio protocol I know because they weren't words exactly. It sounded like someone speaking through water, consonants dragging, vowels collapsing. He went very still. No, he said quietly. No, that's not... I didn't say my name. The file didn't end there. It ran for 12 minutes. But after that sentence, the recording changed texture. Like the microphone had been covered, like the air in the car had thickened. The rain stayed the same, the hum stayed the same. The clicking kept happening, but it gained a pattern. 3 clicks, a pause, 2 clicks, a longer pause, then a single click that sounded satisfied. In the last 60 seconds, the voice returned, but it wasn't the man's voice anymore, and it wasn't anyone else's either. It was too close, too dry for a wet night, and it spoke as if it was reading from a list. Elliot Marsh, it said, not shouted, not hissed. Just stated like a clerk calling a number. I froze so hard my neck hurt. That's my name. I hadn't told the archive my full name in the email chain, just my first name and invoice details. The file was supposedly years old. My first instinct was technical. Metadata can be overwritten. People rename files. Someone could have played a prank. So I did what I always do when something feels wrong. I tried to make it make sense with tools. I pulled it into my software and isolated the frequency band where the voice sat. I filtered the rain out. I denoised the hum. The more I cleaned, the more the clicking stood out. And the more it sounded like a deliberate signal, not a byproduct of weather. There was something else too, a faint pressure tone at the edge of hearing that made my teeth ache. The kind of low frequency you feel in your chest if you stand too close to a generator. I replayed the moment with my name once, twice, 3 times. The first time I heard it, it was a shock. The second time, it was a problem to solve. The third time, it was a presence in my room. and I became painfully aware of the rain outside. Not as background, but as cover, as if everything wet and continuous was a curtain something could hide behind. I did the rational things. I checked the waveform for splices. I looked for signs the audio had been edited. I listened for telltale artifacts. Nothing. It was clean in the way old recordings are clean. Ugly, honest, continuous. When I stopped playback, my flat sounded too quiet for a rainy night. And that's when I realized the wet clicking hadn't stopped immediately with the file. It faded, slowly, over a second or two, like an afterimage. I took my headphones off and held them in my hands as if they were warm. In the silence between raindrops hitting glass, I thought I heard one final click from the direction of my hallway. Soft and close, like someone testing the edge of a door. I didn't move. I didn't call out. I sat there and waited for my own breathing to slow because I knew with the part of my brain that keeps you alive, that if I spoke, if I said anything into that wet air, I might be answering a call I hadn't made. I told myself it was stress. I told myself I was tired. I told myself that names end up in files in ways you can't trace. Then my phone lit up on the desk, not with a call, not with a message, but with the little waveform preview you get when a voicemail lands. I hadn't missed a call. There was no number, just a blank entry and a length, EU012. The rain on the window sounded suddenly like someone tapping metal, and when I pressed play, the first thing I heard was the same wet clicking perfectly familiar as if it had been waiting in my line. And then in a voice that wasn't mine but knew how to shape my syllables, it said very calmly, "Don't play this in the car." I didn't call it back. I didn't even breathe properly until the voicemail finished and the screen went dark again, like my phone had swallowed what it just said. Outside, the rain kept worrying the glass in thin, patient streaks, and the room felt smaller, not because of walls, but because I'd become aware of every surface that could reflect sound back at me. I told myself the obvious lie first. Wrong number, automated glitch, some spammer using a text-to-speech voice. Then I opened the voicemail details, and the lie fell apart. No number, no carrier tag, no timestamp from a network. Just a blank entry sitting in my inbox as if it had been recorded inside my flat and dropped into the phone like a file. I did what I always do when something refuses to be rational. I tried to measure it. I exported the voicemail, pulled it into my workstation, and laid it on the timeline under the original station recording. The clicks matched. Not similar, matched. The same uneven 3-2-1 pattern, the same microscopic pauses, the same wet weight on each contact, like a fingerprint. That shouldn't happen by chance. It shouldn't happen at all. The more I stared at the waveforms, the more the rain outside seemed to sync with them, and I had the ugly thought that the weather wasn't just atmosphere in the recording, it was the medium the recording traveled through. A minute later, the archive emailed me a follow-up. No greeting, no signature, just a single line. "Did you notice the gate?" My scalp tightened. I hadn't replied to them since taking the job. I hadn't told anyone I'd listened tonight. I started to type back 2 words. "What gate?" Then deleted them before sending, because my thumb hovered over the button, and I remembered the line from the old file. The way the man had gone quiet the moment something answered him. I shut the laptop instead. I walked to the kitchen, poured water I didn't drink, and stood with my hand on the counter listening to the rain, trying to convince myself that the clicking was only in the audio. That was when it happened again, not from my headphones, not from my speakers, but from the direction of the front door. Click. A second later, click, click, click. I didn't move. I felt the sound more than I heard it, a tiny pressure change, like air being pinched. My mind tried to name it. Pipe cooling, building settling, the neighbor's lock, but the pattern was too clean. 3, pause, 2, pause, 1. Then a softer sound, like wet fabric, dragging across paint. I did not look through the peephole. I don't know why that felt like a rule, but it did, as instinctive as not touching a hot pan. I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall near the hallway, and I forced my voice to stay inside my throat. The clicking stopped, not abruptly. It faded, like someone deciding they'd been heard. My phone lit up again, another voicemail. Wait. I stared at it as if it might bite. I didn't press play. I put the phone face down on the table, then immediately regretted that too, because the glass against wood felt like sealing something in. The rain pressed on. The flat held its breath. In the silence, I caught a new sound under the weather, an electrical hum, faint as if power lines ran through my ceiling, and it made my molars ache. I went back to my workstation and, instead of listening, I looked at the metadata of the station file again. Slower this time, line by line. The creation date was years old. The device ID field was blank. The location field, where some recorders embed GPS, held a single phrase repeated twice. Station Road Gate. Then underneath, a coordinate set that pointed to a place I knew too well because I'd driven past it 100 times without thinking. A service road turnoff along the coast, the kind locals avoid in bad weather because it floods. I pulled up a map. The road had no name on it, just a thin grey line disappearing into forest. A single landmark near the end. An old relay site, decommissioned. The same one the archive mentioned. My rational brain tried one last rescue. Someone at the archive is messing with you. They dug up your name. They used an app to spoof voicemail. They want a reaction. So I did the only thing that made sense inside that lie. I decided to go there in the morning, in daylight, and end it by making it ordinary. Then my inbox chimed with a final email. Subject line only, nobody, don't drive. I don't know what it was about seeing that in all caps that made the room feel colder, but my skin prickled and my hands started shaking. Because I hadn't told anyone my plan. Because I hadn't even admitted it out loud. I sat down hard in my chair, and for the first time all night, I broke my own rule and spoke to an empty room. Just a whisper, barely a sound. How do you know? The rain on the window sharpened. The hum deepened. And from the hallway, right by the door I refused to look at, the wet clicking answered immediately, close enough that it sounded like it was inside my teeth. If you want the next chapter and the rest of the file, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with your theory about the rule. What makes it answer back, and what you think happens if someone finally drives to the gate. Because the more people listen, the clearer the pattern gets.